There are two kinds of people. And that's how I know that song. Written by Frank Stallone. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd and our guest, Eden Cummings, watch a movie, and then we talk about it afterwards. Talk about, do we like it? Do we not like it? Does it hold up? Does it not hold up? Should you see it? Should you not see it? We let it all fly out there, and you take it in however you want to. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, welcome to this next episode. We are continuing in our series of the Rocky Balblowout, and we just finished watching Rocky 2 with our friend Eden, and we're here to talk about it. So thank you for the musical intro, as usual, Todd.
You're welcome.
And this is a song that's featured in Rocky 2 and sang by Frank Stallone, who is Sylvester Stallone's son, brother, uncle? Brother.
Frank Stallone Jr., I think is his name. His dad was Frank Stallone Sr. But
Gotcha.
Yes, they're brothers.
Gotcha. All right. So I was thinking about the question of who in this movie besides Sylvester Stallone is famous, and I think the answers are going to be largely unchanged.
Exactly the same for this one, yeah.
From the first movie. So we've got Burgess Meredith again, reprising his role as Mickey, and who else?
We're down Joe Frazier.
No Joe Frazier.
No Joe Frazier.
That's true.
Carl Weathers is back.
Yes.
Stallone's back, obviously.
Right.
Both Stallones.
Both Stallones have
Yes.
made a triumphant return for this movie. Talia Shire, who plays Adrian.
We're gonna figure out how to say her name for real before our next movie.
She's back. Burt Young's back, and really, honestly, no one has been added really, except for in this movie you see Apollo's wife,
Marianne.
for the first time. I believe she's not in the first one. I don't remember seeing her.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Isn't she in the stands?
they
They cut to her.
They cut to her a lot in this fight, but I
Yeah.
don't think they cut to her at all in the
Okay.
first fight.
Yeah.
Like I don't think she was there. Period.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing any woman in Apollo's camp.
Yeah.
The first one. So, all right. So there's your notables from this film, and brief synopsis of Rocky 2 if you haven't seen it. This picks up right after the end of Rocky 1, where Rocky fights Apollo Creed, and Apollo wins in a split decision, but it goes 15 rounds, and everyone is surprised by that, and most notably Apollo Creed is surprised by that. He thought it would be an easy fight. So, due to pressure from the community, from hate mail, from various things on Apollo Creed starts really pushing for a rematch with Rocky, who has retired and is struggling through life as a retired boxer, trying to find various jobs, failing at them, getting one and working at it, and then getting laid off, and eventually succumbs to the pressure from the media, from people around him, to schedule this fight with Apollo Creed. In the meantime, as the prep for the fight is going on, Adrian, Rocky's wife now, gives birth to their son, and then she subsequently slips into a coma, and so we get a lot of time spent on Rocky spending time at the hospital, and sleeping in the chapel at the hospital, and being by Adrian's bedside in the meantime, in the daytime, I should say. And then she wakes up, and there was some pressure from her saying, "Hey, you shouldn't do this fight. You agreed you wouldn't fight anymore. You're retired. I'm really nervous." And she wakes up from her coma, and then she's like, "No, you have to beat this guy." So the fight training then goes into overdrive, and we get a big fight at the end of this movie, and I won't tell you what happens, but
Until the start of the next podcast.
Yeah.
that's right.
We gave fair warning, and we gave people plenty of time to do their own research before the second one comes out here.
Each podcast is a standalone with no spoilers, but I give I give no guarantees about previous movies that we've already watched.
Fair enough.
We'll write the rules as we see fit here.
Okay, it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
We can. So that's the plot of this film. Todd, what did you think of this?
Well, this movie has been my favorite Rocky for a long time. Will it continue to be my favorite Rocky while we go through this bow blowout? I don't know. I'll have to see until we get to the end. Keep everyone in suspense. But I do still really like this movie. I think why to me this movie is above number one is because the struggles in this movie that Rocky and kind of family go through are a little bit more relatable in this movie than in the first movie where he's just like a leg breaker and like stuff like that. I don't have much experience being a leg breaker and collecting money, but I've certainly had crappy jobs or have been let go and had trouble like making ends meet and stuff, which is a lot of that what goes on in this movie. So just a lot of well, I'll go to the performances. I think the performances are really good in a sense that, you know, we don't have too many different performances in the first one. So maybe that could probably be used as a negative, but I think everyone stays pretty much true to character. Everyone does as good, if not maybe a little better than the first movie in this one. They're kind of hitting the ground running, and they're catching their groove for these characters and stuff like that. And I think you see that a little bit more in this movie. And again, I think the writing is great in this movie, except for just a small amount of uncomfortable parts. I don't know if they were more uncomfortable last movie or more uncomfortable this movie. That's a hard one for me to determine. But you know, we're in '79 still for this movie. So, I think it's still a really great script. There are so many just enjoyable Rocky's a lovable goofball moments in this movie that I think do a better job of I guess how I would compare this movie to kind of newer age movies where they use humor to kind of, you know, either pass time or move from scene to scene and stuff like that. Like nowadays stuff is so overly done when it comes to humor. It's like, oh, we have to get someplace else. So here's just a funny scene to get us someplace else and to make people laugh. Maybe the movie got too serious and we need a laugh or whatever. The difference here in this movie is that stuff is just slipped under the radar several times in this movie that if you're not paying attention, you're not going to laugh because you don't see it. It's just so subtle to me. And I think that's a mark of great writing. Same thing with the first one. If you haven't seen these movies, I definitely think you should. There's nothing that jumps out to me about this movie that you shouldn't see it. Rocky even runs with kids in this movie, so kids are involved. I'm a big fan, and my rating will probably reflect that. So, Eden?
Yeah, I remembered two things. I remembered not, paying attention to this one in previous Bow Blowouts, but I also remembered it being better than I thought it was today. I talked about pacing for the first one, and I think that overall there's a lot of good beats. I like the story arc, but they spend a lot of time in certain places just really drilling in, and it starts one of the tropes that I definitely recall from Rocky movies is just this very loose and passive understanding of time and how things relate to each other. And that definitely starts here in the hospital, where going into it, Rocky's like on a time crunch. You don't have enough time to get into shape to beat this guy, and then he spends an indeterminate amount of screen and fiction time in the hospital with Adrian, and then comes out and has the montage to get right. Like it's very much the beginning of that trope. Whereas in the first one, that felt like months of time passing and like snippets of, you know, Rocky taking it seriously. This one felt a lot like, well, we need to get to the fight, so let's go ahead and montage, and now you're amazing. Like, it was the beginning of that feel for me, which is fine, but it just felt like there was a lot of little things like that. It felt like there was just like, that's an odd choice. Like filmmaking or story points. It felt like there's just places where it just didn't super connect for me. I still really enjoyed myself. I still absolutely am rating this positively, and I think I might have enjoyed myself a little bit better than one, but I think one is an overall better movie so far.
Fair enough. Well, I will disagree slightly. I think this movie is better. I liked it more. I thought there were less awkward moments in Rocky's character dialogue than in the first movie, which I think was a plus. That was a minus for me in movie one, and there's no objectionable sexual pressure scene in this movie, so that's good. There are some objectionable conversations about gender roles and
Polly still being Polly.
Yes.
Some advocating for violence against women.
Right. There is some of that, which I think is pretty bad by today's standards. And honestly, it was pretty bad by those standards in that time as well, but more accepted. I thought that with the exception of the hospital scene, I thought the pacing was pretty good from my perspective. It was a slightly less complicated story maybe than the first one. I guess you kind of have the main acts of Rocky trying to find a job, and then Rocky having a kid and having his wife be sick in the hospital, and then the training for and eventually the fight. But I thought like I said, other than the hospital sort of obsession with Rocky spending time by the bedside, and we have a shot of that, and then spending time in the chapel, and we have a shot of that, and all the shots of that. That part is a minus, but overall I think they did good, and I think that the acting, as has been said by you, Todd, that the acting was right on, and people do sort of embrace their characters more in this movie than maybe in the first movie, and they developed out a little bit better. But in general, yeah, I liked this one. I liked it better than the first one. And that is where I'll leave that.
Nice. So, obviously on a scale of 0 to 5, how many...
0 to 5 what, Todd?
I know.
0 to 5.
How many red headbands would you give this movie?
Red headbands.
Stallone, as Eden pointed out in the movie, tried really hard to get a red headband over in this movie. It's on his head a lot. So,
like, not just on this movie, in life. Like, Rambo goes for it, Saturday Night Fever we think we talked about.
Yeah. He likes his headbands.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because his hair is so free-flowing. Keep it out of his eyes. I don't know. I don't have that problem, so I can't relate to it.
Yeah. Well.
So, obviously 0 being the worst, because then you have no headbands. And then 5 being the best, because then you have 5, and so you have one for almost every day of the week. So,
that's correct.
Can make some good fashion statements. So, let's start with Eden. how many headbands are you prepared to give this movie?
I'm going to contradict my description and say 3.5. I'm actually going to put it on par with the first one. Now that I've had a second to digest what you fine gentlemen have said, I think that is about right. I think that they are very good companion pieces to each other. I think they're both made better by each existing, but I think that this one felt a little weird to me. The other one felt weird for different reasons, and so I think I'm going to put them about even.
Fair.
Nice. Matt?
I am going to go... I'm going to go with 3.7.
Okay.
Red headbands out of 5.
Big jump for you from the first movie.
Big jump. Yeah, it's true.
Nice.
But I do think that some of the things that were problems in the first movie... Oh, I didn't even mention the fight scene. The first movie, I had a big problem with the throwing of punches, and you couldn't tell if it was supposed to be a great dodge or someone making contact that they really badly acted. This one, they fixed that using sound effects, and it wasn't distracting like it was in the first movie. So that's a big plus. So I think they corrected some of the things that I complained about in Rocky 1. But just looking at this movie, I enjoyed myself. I didn't think there was much wrong with it. And so, yeah, it's going to get a good rating.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said the first time, most of these movies are going to get a high rating for me. This one, watching it again, one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was, for almost like the first half of the movie, all these instances come up of like kind of Rocky almost being lured back to like where he was in the first movie, like kind of trying to draw him back into things that he's worked on and climbed his way out of. And, he makes the hard decisions to not fall back, like, and be like, I can't be a collector anymore and stuff like that. Which are scenes that I really like, because it's kind of like easy to see character growth when that kind of stuff happens. So, I just thought of that while we were all talking. I wanted to share it. So, great. I'm gonna give this movie. I'm gonna land on a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's a big jump for you.
Yeah. Good old 0.5.
Yeah.
Of a jump. Half of a red headband of a jump.
Sweet. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of our podcast where we discuss...
Is the aggregate?
Oh, I'll get to that.
Yeah. I've made that mistake a lot. Where like he starts to do the closing and I'm like, whoa, 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 and he's like, yeah, it's coming. Like, and then I think about it and I'm like, oh yeah, it is always coming. You start with like a wrap up kind of sounding like you're about to end, but then you throw it in there sneakily.
Yes. It's weird. I've done so many of these. I'm on the cast now, and I still don't know that. It's weird.
It's all good. Listeners, a little peek behind the curtain of how this magic is made. So yes, we're wrapping up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed Rocky 2, and we came up with an average rating of 3.9.
Nice.
Red headbands.
Pretty high for our podcast.
Out of 5. Yes, it is high for our podcast.
Yes, our podcast.
Yes. A few more episodes, we'll have to put Eden in the name as well. It'll be great. So yes, we will continue down this road of watching all 8 of the Rocky movies, and we hope that you keep listening and enjoy this special Matt and Todd Go to the Movies feature of a little different format than we are used to. So thank you, listeners. Please keep listening, and we'll see you next time.
Da 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 da.